Here's the radiant floor heat and domestic hot water system from Mom Lousberg's house. Here's a schematic, and I'll send this to you as a PDF, and it represents the system in front of us. But walking through the schematic real quickly, you have the boiler, and the water comes out of the boiler, and it goes to 3 heating zones within the house controlled by zone valves. Additionally, it branches off, and there's a zone valve that controls the hot water that heats the domestic hot water. It goes through the tank, and then it returns back to the boiler. As well, the 3 heating zones within the house return back through a circulator pump back into the boiler. So that is the system in a nutshell. And then we'll walk through the system. The boiler is here. If you remove the front panel from the boiler, there is a boiler temperature control right here that you can use to set the temperature. And it's currently set at 160. If you can see that. And it's just a little knurled wheel that you turn. Then, going to the side of the boiler, if you start here, you see the 3 return lines from the 3 heating zones within the house. They come down and they all come together. They come into this line here, and then this line here goes into the circulation pump. Circulation pump goes into the boiler, water is heated, comes out of the main manifold on top of the boiler, and then if you come around over here, you'll see there are 3 zone valves that feed the hot water to the 3 zones within the house. If you look, the top zone valve is for the north bedroom. Does that help? The next one down is for the living room, and the bottom one is for the master bedroom. So those are 3 zone valves that activate when the thermostat calls for heat. Additionally, you have the zone valve here, which comes out of the main manifold, and this zone valve controls the heater loop that goes to the domestic hot water tank. So it feeds in, goes through a coil inside, and then returns back here and returns back to the circulation pump. So those are the main heating loops within the house in the domestic hot water. There are 2 vents, 2 air vents, one on the supply side, or one on the return side, one on the supply side. They should be left open at all times. Even though this one's indicating keep closed, we'll mark that out. It should be kept open. So there's also 2 pressure gauges. Now on the side of the boiler, there's a pressure gauge and a temperature gauge. The top shows the pressure, and the bottom shows the temperature. So it normally runs up when it's operating over 30, about 35 psi, and when it's shut off, it's about what it is right now, which is, what's it reading? About 15? It's reading about 15 when it's shut off. So the complaint that Mom has been having is that the water, domestic hot water in the morning is very hot. So what the plumber Ron from Robbins Heating and Air Conditioning determined is that this zone valve is leaking by. So what happens at night when the floor circuits are calling for heat, and the zone valves are on and the boiler is operating, the water is leaking past this valve and it's going to the hot water tank and heating the hot water. In the morning then, the temperature in the hot water tank is extremely hot because it's been heated all night. So Ron troubleshot this by, we went upstairs and we turned on one of the thermostats on one of the 3 heating loops for the radiant floor. So we turned one of these on and allowed the boiler to call for heat and operate. And when it did, and before we did that, he closed this ball valve. Closed this ball valve which feeds water to the hot water tank. So I closed it and we operated one of the heating loops, and when the water got very hot, you can feel the pipes. One of these 3 pipes, you can tell when you're getting hot water going to the floor, and you can also feel here on the return that the water's been all the way through. So you let it operate for a while, and then you can feel that it's hot here, and you can feel that it's cold downstream from the ball valve. So then if you open the ball valve, then we could determine that this was leaking by, because this is closed and the water on this side of the valve would get hot, which means this is leaking by. So what Ron's going to do on Wednesday, December 3rd, is come and repair this valve by changing out the internals on it to make sure it's operating correctly. Now if we go over to the hot water tank, there's a control panel over here on the hot water tank. And what it shows is it shows the set point for the hot water, and it's currently set at 125. Now there's a few settings for this, and let me get the paper and I'll show you.
Now you want to turn that light off.
There are 3 settings for this. There's a temperature setting, there's a differential setting, there's a post-purge setting, a priority setting, capacity setting, and BTU transfer. And I'll make a copy of this and send this to you as well. But what you do is you hit the setup button and then it will let you toggle through these, and we'll do that now. So if you press and hold the setup button, you'll see that TP comes up, and that's the temperature of the water, and you can adjust it by the up or down arrows. If you hit set again, that's the differential. That's the temperature drop before it asks for hot water again. The choices are 5 degrees or 10 degrees. We set it to 5 degrees so it keeps the water in the tank hotter. The next setting, I got to reset it. I waited too long. So TP, differential, and that's I'm not quite sure what this one is, but it determines how long the boiler runs after you hit the set point, or it shuts off before you hit the set point. So we set it for 0 degrees, so it doesn't shut off at all. I waited too long. So TP, differential, the post priority, that means that the hot water is priority over the heating system. That's set to yes. Capacity, it's a 60-gallon tank, it's set for 60. And the BTU is a troubleshooting setting that we don't need to be concerned with. So other aspects, so that's the main aspects of the boiler and the hot water issue. Some other information about the system is that on the boiler, this line here on the boiler is the makeup water line. So it comes in through a gate valve, or a ball valve, comes in through a check valve, and it comes through to a pressure regulator that's set to about 12 psi, and it feeds into the the return side that goes to the pump. So that's how you make up water to the boiler. On the domestic hot water side, you have a few features here. You have a similar thing on this in that you have a supply line here that goes to an expansion tank, and then that allows makeup water to come into the system as needed. There's also a hot water circulation pump that's continually running that always circulates hot water through the system to make sure there's hot water available at any time. So once again, on the boiler side, you have an expansion tank that's to main pressure that goes into the supplies or the return side of the circulation pump. There's a pressure relief valve that's set at 30 psi that relieves pressure. Even though it's set at 30 psi, I've never seen water come out. This was replaced last year. There was a 50 psi relief valve on it, and it's now 50. Even though the gauges say we're over 30, I've never seen water come out. It goes to the sump, and I've never seen water come out, so it doesn't seem like we're ever really hitting 30 on the boiler. So the theory is, with the zone valve leaking to the hot water tank, so at night when it gets cold and the floor circuits are calling for heat, and this is leaking by, it allows the water in the domestic hot water tank to get very, very hot. At the same time, it's also robbing some of the water from the heating circuits, which is probably not allowing them to function as efficiently as they did in the past. So Mom was complaining about the floor circuits not working the same way. So hopefully that once Ron from Robbins replaces this, and once he tests this with this ball valve, and once it holds, then the water tank settings should be a lot better on the domestic hot water, and hopefully the response on the floor circuits is better. So what I would suggest is, right now the hot water tank is set to 125. I'm going to ask Mom to have Ron set that to 130 when he leaves. So I think that covers everything down here. So we're going to go upstairs and check I'll show you where the thermostats are and how the thermostats function. We'll stop now. That'll be a little short video after that.